And now we are to our next. Wait, hold on, make sure I actually spelled everything correctly here. Status. Okay. So now we're gonna, for our next function, which will bind the attributes to shader, void shader bind attributes index and const char pointer to p name. Make sure the program is actually working. Wait, I put the asterisk in here? I did not, did I? No, let's include it. Include asterisk in case you haven't. And then that should work. There we go. And then we can call the bind attribute location m shader program, the index and the p name. Now we want to, for our next function, is we'll load the shader resource. Not resource, shader source. Void shader load shader source file. I'm not sure if I call it const or just what is it? Yeah, it's const char. And we can call file pointer p file. Make sure that equals null. The char pointer to the shader buffer equals null. F open underscore s. To the file name or p file name. And it's going to read it. Why is it wrong? Line declaration incompatible with char. Oh, it's a char pointer. You make sure the file read it correctly. And if it didn't, you want to return null. Hopefully no, yeah, it's working. And if it worked fine, you want to get the size of the file. Call it f seek p file. We got that 0 and L thing again. Seek, and we want to read the file length. So the U32 buffer size equals ftell. So it will tell how long, how the size of the file it is. And now we now we rewind back to the start. And we're gonna shader buffer equals new char of the buffer size plus 1. You always have to add 1 to it for the null terminator. And then f fread, the shader buffer, the buffer size 1, and the p file. And if this is less than or equal to 0, if it's less than or equal to 0, then tough cookies, you know. Return null. Otherwise, that means everything worked correctly. You want to put a shader buffer or the buffer size. This is the reason why I wanted you guys to add a 1 to it, so you could put the null terminator at the end. And then you want to close it. Make sure you close it, otherwise it's going to be lingering around memory. And you want to return the shader buffer. And that's it for that. Now we want to include the shader error message. U32 P shader ID, and the con sharp pointer to the P shader file name. So you want int log size equals, or not really equals, the char pointer to info log and off stream to fout. We'll write out a, I think it just writes out a file. Yeah, it does write out a little text file telling you what went wrong with the shader. So that's what this function is going to do. It'll tell us what went wrong with the shader. So that's what that function is. This function is going to do. You want to get the size of the string gl get shader iv p shader id gl info log it's length, and you want to press log size info log info log equals new char log size +1 for the null terminator, and make sure well, you know what? It's gonna be stupid, but yeah, I don't need it. No, I don't need it. Okay, now I want to retrieve the information. GL get shader info log p shader ID, the log size null, and you want to pass in the info log. And open a file to write to. So fout dot open, and we can name this text file to be shader error .txt, and then you want to loop through the entire thing. Do you have to? Yes, you do. I is less than logs. Well, I mean, maybe you don't have to. If you guys have got a different way to write into the file, let me know. I don't know if you can use the fprint stuff on this. And then you want to close it. And you want to pop a message to screen. With the message box, we came back to the message box. Oh yeah. And we're gonna need we're gonna include our engine, because we have to get something from engine for the first parameter. It's a HWD, and engine contains that. So engine. Okay. I'm gonna get the graphics. What did I call? No. You want to get the instance first. What am I doing? I'm sorry, guys. Get engine first. Then you want to get the graphics. And then get OpenGL. And then get HWD. And then the error that you should print out should say error compiling shader check shader error.txt for message. So it's just letting us know that they wrote a file. And p shader file name and b okay. Like, yay! Wait, make sure this compiles. Like always, sometimes I always have errors on this stuff though. Of course, like I always do. Linker error, just call. Wait, what the heck? Linker. Oh, because I haven't created it yet. Wait, what? Yeah, that's the reason why. Which is our next function that we can create right now. Which is our void shader linker error message, which is a U32 p program ID. And to make this simpler, copy that entire thing here, because it's all the same except for like 1 or 2 lines that are a little bit different. And I'll tell you which ones right now. Give me a second. So right here, what do you want to do? Well, copy that, make sure there's a program ID, and this one's going to be a little bit different. GL get program IV. Make sure you copy this, and this is going to be a little bit different. GL get program info log, and you're going to call it shader linker, or should I call it link error? Yeah, link error message .txt. It kind of combines linker and then it says error. Haha. I don't know, I'm weird though, sorry guys. And then for our last one here, we're just gonna pass in linker error, and that's just now everything oh no. Okay, so we're still not done with the shader class. Do not get a little bit ahead of myself because I'm not there yet. Not just yet. Alright guys, we still have to create our begin and end shader functions. And we're going to use the GL use program it's a really one line thing program, and you want to use the M shader program, and the other one is the N shader, which is similar, just that it will pass in a 0 on it, or you can use null, so it doesn't like overwrite the other ones in the future. So I had that before when I first started creating this. It will overwrite them, so that was not a good idea, you know. It sucked. It took me a while to realize that, but oh well. But anyways, our next function, you know what, because I was sucked to write into this entire thing. Copy this. Oh, if you want to write the entire thing, then go for it. I ain't stopping you guys. I ain't stopping you. Yeah, that's the only thing bad thing about that, because he writes in every single line, and that kind of sucks. Okay. So for this one, you want to get the int lock equals GL get uniform location. You need to pass the M shader program, and you can pass in the P name that you want to retrieve. You make sure lock is greater than 0, greater or equal to 0. You don't want to make sure it's negative, because if it's negative, that means they didn't find it, and you'll be writing it for some reason, and that will kind of suck. GL uniform matrix for F V. You need to pass in the lock, pass in 1, and we can transpose it like I mentioned earlier. OpenGL is column major, and we wrote our shader, our matrix in row major. So make sure you transpose it here. And you set true. If you guys didn't column major, just make sure you put false there. So I was letting you guys know in the future, if you guys didn't follow me. And pass in the matrix, or it's a P matrix. And then you want to return true. Well, in that case, this will be return false. Return true, because that means they did find the right one, you know. For our next one, you want to, I'm gonna just copy this entire thing, because it's gonna be exactly the same thing almost for every single one of them. So if lock is greater or equal to 0, you want to get GL uniform 1F. You're passing a lock, and you pass in the value. Return true, return false. Now we go back to the int, which is the same exact thing in the other one, but it's just an int. The only difference is that it's not 1F, but it's a 1I. For int, you pass in a lock and a p value. Passing that, if lock is greater or equal to 0, it's going to create an error right here because I forgot my true here, and return false. And in here, what you want to do is GL uniform 2F, and you pass in the lock, and you want to, oh damn, you know what, go back to your class for your vector classes because I did not create our getter functions for these. So if you didn't do that, make sure you get it. No, math core. And we finally done. I should have done that sooner, I forgot. But anyways, we'll go back to here. We'll get b value dot get x and p value dot get y. I'm going to return true, return false. You want to get this, remember to recopy it in case you rechange the previous one. Make sure lock is greater or equal to 0. And it's going to be similar, just that this time it's a GL uniform 3F. And you're going to pass in a lock. P value dot get x, P value dot get y, and p value dot get z. Return true, return false. And for our final and last function, for our shader class, make sure you do this. Make sure that lock is greater or equal to 0. Not 9 or 90, but 0. You can call GL active texture. You can GL texture 0 plus the slot. You want to bind the texture. And the p handle or texture ID, and use a GL uniform 1i with the lock and slot. You want to return true, return false, and that's it for our function. Make sure it compiles. Okay, successfully.